So greetings from Pennsylvania once again, and in today's video we're going to be discussing Braddock's expedition and Braddock's road. Because in a couple of videos coming up you're going to be seeing my videos where we do as best we can to follow Braddock's road and talk about the different things that happened on his expedition. I've actually filmed those videos already. On May 11th, that was actually last week, today's May 17th actually, but on May 11th I left to head out towards the Pittsburgh area. Spent 3 days out there doing all kinds of awesome stuff. So I'm actually filming the intro video to Braddock's expedition after I filmed Braddock's expedition itself. But that's just the way it worked out. I was planning on doing it on that trip, but I just decided to wait until I got home to do it. So, and actually I think it works better that way because I can talk about the expedition and we're going to talk about what you can expect to see in those videos too. It was fun, but it was also a challenge. Lots of directions. I had all kinds of directions I was following, my little book here, where to go and what roads to take. It was nuts sometimes, but we did it. So what is Braddock's expedition and who is the guy? Obviously Braddock's expedition deals with our French and Indian War series, and Major General Edward Braddock was the man who led that expedition. We're not going to go into a whole lot into his personal life. I already did a video on that. You can look back in this series. I have a playlist for this series, and we did a whole video on, kind of like a biography on him. But Braddock's expedition occurred in the summer of 1755. It was a response to the previous year in 1754, because we did videos on that too. George Washington went up there with some of his Virginia militia to try to convince the French to leave, because this all dealt with Fort Duquesne at the forks of the Ohio River in current-day Pittsburgh. Both the British and the French wanted to control the Ohio River Valley area, and the French had built Fort Duquesne there. Washington went up to try and convince them to leave. That didn't work out so well. And of course, different events happened, like the little skirmish at Jumonville Glen, and Washington's surrender at Fort Necessity. So Braddock's expedition was kind of a response to that. It was an effort then to actually retake the forks of the Ohio where Fort Duquesne was located. And the purpose of this expedition as a whole was not just to take Fort Duquesne, but to eventually take all the French forts that were in what is now western Pennsylvania. I think Fort Machault, Fort Le Boeuf, and then all the way up to Presque Isle, Fort Presque Isle on the shore of Lake Erie. And then even to continue on up into New York and take Fort Niagara. That was the plan. Of course, there were a number of other expeditions occurring by the British at the same time. They're all kind of going to meet together at the same point and defeat the French, and it was going to be it. The war was going to be over. And obviously, if you know anything in history, that did not happen. And largely as a result of the Braddock's expedition, which failed miserably in the end. But we'll save that stuff for other videos, the failure of that. I did want to show you this book. This is the book I used to follow the road as much as possible. It's Braddock's Expedition by Norman Baker. A very detailed book on the route that they took. I try to follow this as much as possible. It tells different incidents that happened along the way. Really cool book, I think, if you're looking to find the places along Braddock's road. And here is our map of Pennsylvania. Of course, the Braddock expedition officially started here in Cumberland, PA, Fort Cumberland. But he himself started down here and off the map here down Alexandria, Virginia. But up this way is where the road actually started, because they had to build a road all the way up to present-day Pittsburgh, where Fort Duquesne is located. So this is the route that we followed. And I started my adventure here, right at the border. I didn't do this section from here to here, because that's in Maryland. Just sticking with what's in Pennsylvania. So I started here, followed Route 40, and kind of roughly made our way up this way to Fort Duquesne. General Braddock and his army left Fort Cumberland on May 29th of 1755. Of course, the Battle of Monongahela, where they were defeated by the French and Indians, occurred on July 9th of that same summer. They entered Pennsylvania on June 23rd, so it took them quite a while just to get to Pennsylvania there. They're probably taking their time at that point, I guess. But yeah, from June 23rd then to July 9th is the time that they spent building that road through the Pennsylvania wilderness. Because that's one of the things you got to remember. There was no road going to Fort Duquesne. There was probably some Indian paths, but those paths were not big enough to take supply wagons and artillery and stuff. So to get up to Fort Duquesne and to lay siege to the fort, they had to build their own road to get there. So that took them quite a while to do that. Imagine just building a road through, old growth forest, virgin wilderness. That's what they had to do. And building a road, when I say road, I don't mean like a paved road or even like a nice gravel dirt road that you see. It was probably still pretty rough looking wagon road just to get up there. So it wasn't just about marching your troops up there. You had to build a road for your troops and your artillery to travel on just to get to Fort Duquesne. So that was the big issue with it. What took them so long to get there. And it should be noted that this army that Braddock had was, at the time, the largest army ever assembled in North America. He had about 2,100 soldiers with him. I think about 1,400 of them were regular British soldiers. About 700 of them came from the colonies, mostly Virginia, Maryland, and some from North Carolina. Often referred to as the provincial soldiers. So he had a lot of men, actually soldiers with him, not just to fight, but actually to make the road itself. And George Washington went with him. George Washington was only 23 at the time, I believe. He went along as not really a commissioned officer, but as an aide to General Braddock on that military campaign. And then as they built that road, you know, they would build like a couple miles of it. That's what they could do in a day, and then the men and the supplies would travel, and then they would camp. The whole series of camps, 20 camps altogether. I think camps 7 through 20 were in Pennsylvania. They all have different names, and different things happened at those camps. And when I traveled Braddock's Road, I tried to point out as best I could where those camps were. Some of them today are still in like wooded areas, and some are in the middle of town where you never even know that camp occurred back in the 1700s. So it was quite difficult at times to figure out where some of those locations were, but we were able to do it. So yeah, when I filmed this video, I tried as best as possible. Let me switch the camera around here. I did as best as possible as I could to follow Braddock's Road. There are some places we actually followed it. We were actually following on the actual road. It's still there. Sometimes it's just a trace. Like at Fort Necessity, you can walk on parts of the original road. But other places, it is a modern road too. You can actually drive on it. It's paved and everything. In other places, we had to just kind of parallel the road. You know, maybe the main highway here, but Braddock's Road is off to the left or the right, and it's just not, you're just not able to walk or drive on anymore because it's on private property. So we have a mixture of those types of things we could do. We did as best we could to follow the road as much as possible. You know, those camps go by different names. One camp was called Scalping Camp. Like, you can probably picture what happened there. One camp was called Camp Manakatootha. We'll talk about that in the video. So they all went by different names. One camp was at Camp 10, I think it was Rock Camp it was called. So they found some interesting graffiti, shall we say, left behind by the French soldiers. So kind of interesting things happened along the way on that campaign. So I split those videos into 2 parts. Instead of filming just one video, it would have been too much. I think part 1 is almost an hour long, and then part 2 is close to about 45 minutes long. So it was almost an hour, almost 2 hours of filming for the expedition. You know, to get from that area in Pennsylvania, I think it's called Addison, to Pittsburgh, if you drove on the main highways, it'd only take you an hour and a half to get there. But it took me longer than I thought, longer than I expected to film it all, to drive and film that whole section. Just driving along all those back roads and everything, trying to figure out where I was. A couple times I had to turn around and get my phone out, check Google Maps, turn around, find the right road, get back going again. It was a challenge. I knew it was going to be a challenge when I started, when I was playing this, but we did it though. Alright, I should mention too that besides Washington, there were some other familiar names that were part of this expedition too. Daniel Boone, should be a very familiar name, and Daniel Morgan were wagoneers, you know, helped taking the wagon full of supplies out that way. And then Thomas Gage and Horatio Gates were also part of that expedition. They should be familiar names from Revolutionary War history. So there were a number of other men that became part of American history later on that were actually part of this expedition too, and they obviously survived. Braddock himself did not. So the point of this video is just to give you a little bit of a background as to what Braddock's expedition was. I know we've talked about it in other videos, and just to give you a little bit of brief little highlights of what to expect in the upcoming videos when I'm actually traveling on Braddock's Road. So yeah, so those, like I said, those will be coming up soon. I might upload this video. I'm going to upload this video before those, and maybe before some other videos too. Anyway, just to give you a little taste of what's to come. That was an awesome trip. But anyway, thanks for coming along, and I'll see you in the next one, hopefully along Braddock's Road.